Before Pizza Tower, before Ori 2, before Celeste, before Cuphead, before Battle Block Theater, and even before Spelunky, there was another indie platforming game called Super Meat Boy that really paved the way of future platformers to come. Now personally, Super Meat Boy is a game I knew about. I watched Jacksepticeye play it almost a decade ago. I dabbled with it a bit myself, but honestly, that's about it. It's a game that has just been rotting in my library since 2017, slowly decaying. Until a month or so ago, when some bloke called Bunger commented on my Steam profile daring me to 100% it, and it made me curious because Super Meat Boy might have been a huge success that people all around the world praised to the moon and back, but did you know there is also a sequel that released in 2020, exactly a decade after the original, and nobody, and I really do mean nobody, likes it. Yep, this is real, and it's called Super Meat Boy Forever, which threw everything about the original game into the trash bin and turned it into a randomly generated auto runner. And I don't understand why. Do you understand why Bunger from Bugsnax? Because I'm genuinely perplexed. So what I want to do with this video is honestly review the entire series from top to bottom, do a deep dive into every game and give you my honest, down-to-earth opinion on it to see what made people love Meat Boy to begin with, but also to see what went oh so wrong. And trust me when I say that you definitely want to stick around till the end, because we are going to cover some wacky, confusing garbage. So let's dive straight into the schmuck, starting of course with the sponsor of this video, which is Opera GX, baby. Have you ever looked at your web browser and said to yourself, man, this garba goo goo gaga is lame as hell, it could use a little spark, a bit of pizzazz, a little upgrade? Well, if you think like that, then Opera GX is the web browser for you. It is absolutely packed to the brim with tons of quality of life features like GX Control, which allows you to limit the amount of RAM and CPU the web browser uses, making it so that it won't eat all your computer resources up like a hungry hippo. It also has a dozen of customization options ranging from custom sound effects for typing or opening tabs. You can give your sidebar a custom color or even add an animated background with some funky music that will pause automatically if you watch something on YouTube or Twitter. You aren't sure what customization you want? No worries, because Opera GX has dozens of custom mod templates that you can download with a simple click. You can even mix and match multiple things together, making it really personal. I'll take a Freddy FNAF Bear background with PVZ music and funny hot dog sound effects. Perfection. So go to operagx.gg/foco or click the link in the description if you want to support the channel. And big boy thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Thank you for the money, I really do appreciate it. Alright, that's enough. Let's finally dive into Super Meat Boy! Super Meat Boy is a rage-inducing precision platformer about a cube of meat that has to save his girlfriend, Bandage Girl, from the nefarious Dr. Fetus, who is a literal unborn baby in a glass jar with a top hat and a monocle. Absolute peak character design. The game is mostly developed by two people, Tommy Raffinis, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Edmund Macmillan. Now, that last name should definitely ring a bell because it's the creator of The Binding of Isaac, which is a game that partially raised me when I was a child. I've talked about it already in my Big Isaac video, so if you want to hear me talk more about it, you can click the little card thingy in the right upper corner. Also, if you've ever played Isaac, you also might have noticed these items, which are all references to Meat Boy, in case you didn't know. Now, I'm pretty sure that almost everyone that clicked on this video knew what Super Meat Boy is, but I'm also pretty sure that a big chunk of you don't know that there is actually a sort of prequel to this game simply called Meat Boy, which is usually considered as a prototype. The plot and gameplay of Meat Boy are almost the exact same as Super Meat Boy. You are a meaty cube that has to save his girlfriend from a fetus in a jar, but this version is a lot more janky in comparison because you slip and slide to the other side of the map by just tapping the arrow key for 1 millisecond. You literally just teleport. It's so goddamn finicky. Also, as a fun bonus, it's made in Flash, so you know it's gonna be a real piece of garbage. P.S. I love garbage. scratch. There are a total of 46 levels that slowly increase in difficulty, a total of 24 band-aids to collect that unlock some goofy characters like Gish from the hit game Gish and the Blue Knight from Castle Crashers. It has an absolutely fantastic and very artistic ending where Dr. Feeders just takes a dump on the floor. It was honestly one of the better Flash games back in the day, up there with Happy Wheels, Alien Hominid and Age of War. Just a simple 2D platformer that is slightly janky but still enjoyable. Fun fact, by the way, in this game Bandage Girl is called Band-Aid Girl, but they had to change that for Super Meat Boy because Band-Aid is a brand name and they kinda didn't want to get sued, which, you know, I can understand. The final noteworthy thing that the Meat Boy did was introduce a level editor, which allowed you to, you guessed it, create your own Meat Boy levels to share them around on the internet with a simple code. It's also super janky, just like the game itself. Yay! The cool thing that Edmund did with this though is make a user-created map pack about 2 months after the release of Meat Boy called Meat Boy Map Pack Expansion exclamation. Yeah, it's not the greatest name, but it does the job, you know. And we all know that if you're gonna give a level creator tool to a group of people online, that they will only make wholesome little levels and nothing nefarious or evil, just flowers and butterflies that make you feel all happy from the inside. It introduces a total of 70 new levels, some easy, some really difficult, and some really goddamn stupid. You do have some wholesome little things like this little pixel art level made by Tom Fulop himself, the founder and owner of Newgrounds, but on the other side you also have garbage like this. Like, do I need to explain it to you? The map pack expansion also introduced some new playable characters, all references to Newgrounds, and some new endings, which sadly I can't show, but all you need to know is that Meat Boy gets freaky and starts eating ass and sucking toes. But yeah, that's Flash Meat Boy for you. It's overall slightly janky, but still a fun little time waster. Plus the map pack expansion really dials the difficulty up to 11 if you're into that kind of stuff. The best way to play is on Newgrounds while using the Ruffle plugin. You can also get it on Steam since it's included in the Basement Collection, which is a bunch of Edmund's old Flash games mushed together in a nice package. But that version of Meat Boy can only be played in 720p quality, so it's a bit blurry, which can be a little annoying. The Basement Collection does have achievements for Meat Boy, however, so if you're mentally insane like me, you play this. If you have a functional brain, you just go to Newgrounds because it's 1, free, and 2, it's in better quality. But again, both of these dinky little Flash games are considered as a prototype by Edmund himself that put down the foundation for what would be Super Meat Boy, because this game basically controls the exact same as its Flash counterpart, but it's a lot more refined, smooth, less janky, and with the introduction of a sprint button, which allows you to toggle sprint. Yeah, I know, insane feature. So let's finally dive into Super Meat Boy, which was originally an Xbox Live Arcade exclusive released on the 20th of October in 2010, and it was ported over to Steam about a month or so later. Again, it is a precision, rage-inducing platformer that starts out rather simple, but slowly gets harder and harder over time. The game consists of very short stages that it rapidly throws at you throughout your playthrough, lasting about 10 to 30 seconds each. The thing is though, Meat Boy explodes into a pile of red mush by lightly touching anything. Even air particles aren't safe for him. So yeah, this is basically a game where you die a lot. And when I mean a lot, I really do mean a lot. My playthrough had almost 10,000 deaths in total, which in case you don't know, you can't count that on 2 hands. It is impossible. So in reality, stages can be completed in 20 or so seconds, and you will clear a handful of them on your first attempt, but some of the latter stages will take up to about 5 to 30 minutes, mostly because the stages get more challenging over time. It does this by making the levels more tricky to maneuver through, but also by introducing new stage gimmicks, and some of these can be quite tough, like the black moths that explode into smaller black moths. There are homing missiles that can turn 180 degrees mid-air, gravity ball pushy thingies that are super unreliable, evil
small Meat Boy clones that mimic your movements. You also have laser eyes that follow you around, which are really annoying, and Edmund actually later on used those same eyes in Isaac as an enemy in the womb, and I never ended up forgiving him for doing that. It's a very speedy game. You jump into a stage, give it a couple of tries, beat it, see all your failed attempts at once, and move on to the next. There is no real fluff, making it really fun yet satisfying to zoom through. There are some cutscenes, but they are very brief, and they only play on boss levels, which you actually only have to beat once. They also just try to tell a very bare bones narrative to tie the whole game together while making a few silly jokes, which I'm all for. A lot of these cutscenes are also cute little references to old NES games like Castlevania or Mega Man, which is really neat. In terms of content though, there are a total of 7 worlds, each consisting of 20 stages and a boss, except the end, which only exists out of 5 stages and a boss. Here's the kicker though, if you beat a stage in a certain time frame, you'll get an A+ rank, which unlocks a harder version of the stage called a Dark Side stage. Now you don't need to do a single one of these Dark Side stages to beat the game. If you beat 85 of them, however, you do get a bonus cutscene, but for the main ending, you need to again beat 0, nada, nothing. You can go through every normal level, defeat the final boss, and call it quits, but that's kinda lame. If you're a real gamer like me, you wanna 100% it, for which you need to complete every normal and Dark Side stage with a A+ rank, complete every warp zone, which are just extra little bonus stages with a retro skin on them, and collect every single bandage, which unlocks characters from other games with unique abilities, which is pretty neat. You got Commander Video from Bit Trip Runner, you can play as a headcrab from Half-Life, Captain Viridian from VVVVVV is here, and yes, that's the actual name of the game, the kid from that one game that I hate, and even Steve from Minecraft, so I can add Minecraft in the tags of this video now. Very cool. Some of these characters, however, are console exclusive, but others are PC exclusive, like Minecraft Steve, yeah, you can only get him on PC. But someone like Spelunky Guy from Spelunky, you can only get on consoles, which sucks because Spelunky Guy is hella base with that big ass nose. Look at that nose. Look how red and big it is. Also, I can't play on console anymore because I sold my PS5. It has no games. So if you do everything that I mentioned, complete every level with a A+ rank, complete every warp zone, and collect every bandage to get every character, you'll unlock the Golden God achievement. Which isn't the end of Super Meat Boy. Look at you thinking it was over. Nuh-uh, no it isn't. Now we're getting into the goopy territory. This is the place only lunatics dare to step into. There are 14 achievements in Super Meat Boy that I like to call the boy achievements because all their names end with the word boy. Each one of these achievements are attached to either a light or dark side of a world, and in order to unlock one of them, you need to complete every level in their set world without dying in a game all about dying. Yay! This is where this game got its insane difficulty status from and why people hate it but also revere it. Beating Super Meat Boy honestly isn't that hard. Sure, some levels can be tough, but it's doable. Even going for Golden God isn't that difficult. It's hard, but not impossible. But 100%ing it is just stupid and painful. This is also why that Bunger bloke challenged me to do this. It is an insanely hard challenge that only the most diehard of people are willing to go for. Completing some worlds in this game without dying takes hours upon hours of playtime. Most light worlds are okay, and even some of the early dark worlds are doable, but the latter levels like Rapture and the Cotton Alley are absurdly rough, especially the Cotton Alley, okay? Don't be fooled by the cutesy facade. Going for Girl Boy and Impossible Boy changes a man. But you know me, I'm the achievement guy and I don't give up, so take that, Bunger. I never liked Bug Snacks anyway. Game was a pile of doo-doo all along. Overall, Super Meat Boy is a good game. I wouldn't call it amazing or a masterpiece, but it's good, and you should definitely check it out if you're interested. The game is like $3 when it's on a sale, which is cheaper than a Big Mac. I think it's also very important to know what Super Meat Boy did for the gaming scene. It instantly became an icon when it comes to indies. It was already quite well known from the Flash version, but Super Meat Boy really shot the character up into the stratosphere. Everyone started to love this little guy, and I mean, how can you not? It's a red cube of flesh trying to save a ball of bandages while fighting a fetus in a jar with a funny suit that likes to flip people off. It's charming as hell. He even started to make appearances in other games like Enter the Gungeon, Portal 2, Octodad, Geometry Dash, and Friday Night Funkin'. Everyone started to recognize Meat Boy. It became a staple, and a lot of games wouldn't even be made if it wasn't because of this little cube. In short, it was a massive hit, selling more than 1 million copies by the end of 2011, and even becoming the face of indie games for a while. It also ended up getting quite a bit of support after its release with the introduction of new achievements, a level editor just like the original Meat Boy, and a race mode DLC in 2018, which is very nifty. After most of the dust settled though, Edmund and Tommy split ways for a bit, and while Tommy was doing things, like I don't know, I couldn't find anything about what he was doing shortly after Super Meat Boy, Edmund decided to casually hit gold again with The Binding of Isaac, which turned out to be an even bigger success than Meat Boy, and I mean, for good reason. The game is absolute peak. Also, in case you don't know, there are 10 T-Boy games. 10, and 8 of them were released before the Meat Boy sequel, which is kind of crazy to think about. So let's finally talk about that sequel, Super Meat Boy Forever. This one is a really doozy one, and you have to open an entirely new can of worms to understand why it came out in the way it did. This game was originally announced all the way back in 2012 as a endless/auto runner for mobile devices. Yes, you heard me right, this was originally supposed to be a mobile game. One thing I want you to understand though is that around 2010 and 2014, endless/auto runners were all the craze, popping up around every corner. Think about Subway Surfers, Temple Run, Jetpack Joyride, Tiny Wings, Goddamn Minion Rush, and even Mario took a shot at it. It was just a very safe route to go down, and for a simple and small little spin-off, honestly, it isn't a horrible idea. But then the drama began. Super Meat Boy Forever was put on the back burner about a year later, and then around 2017, Edmund announced that he left Team Meat because of creative differences, leaving the IP behind and in the hands of Tommy. Now, I don't really want to dive into this whole drama between Edmund and Tommy, because honestly, it isn't any of my business, and I don't like to stick my nose into private relationships. It feels very icky and distasteful. What this meant though is that this game basically restarted development. Plus, it was also going to be a proper console/PC game masked as a sequel, so no longer was it going to be a little spin-off. And then finally, after a whole decade, 8 years of on and off development, the game finally released. And it's not good. Yeah, I just don't know how to word it differently, but this title just kind of blows, which sucks because you can easily see that some of the devs put a lot of passion and soul into this project. So let's start off with the gameplay, and I'll say it again, this is a randomly generated auto runner that you completely control with 2 buttons, A and D-pad down. It makes more sense if you're using a PS5 controller, but I like the Xbox controller more, so that's the one I'm going to reference. The A button allows you to jump and punch when you press it again mid-air, allowing you to hit enemies/obstacles and use it as a little dash. And D-pad down allows you to slide or quickly dive down, which both also make you able to hit enemies/obstacles. You can also wall jump, but that's all you can do. It's absurdly simple, and that by itself isn't a bad thing. There are a lot of great games with simple control schemes, including Super Meat Boy itself, but here it feels like you're never fully in charge. It's clunky and really annoying to the point of frustration. For example, when you do a wall jump, you start going into the opposite direction. So if you accidentally jump on a wall, which you do quite a lot, you're basically screwed. You can't adjust, you can't turn back, you are running left now, which usually just means you're dead, you know, sucks to suck. But honestly, that isn't my biggest gripe with
with this game. My big problem is how the game's levels are structured. The original Meat Boy had 20 short levels per world, but in Super Meat Boy Forever you have 5 longer levels per world that are divided into randomly generated chunks. And because your stupid, dumb little Meat Boy guy can't stop running for no reason, you never get a chance to observe the chunk obstacle in front of you, so you just throw Meat Boy into it until you beat it, which never feels satisfying. You're just going through the motion. It isn't fun. In Super Meat Boy, they went, okay, so here is the level. Here are all the obstacles. You know, we've sprinkled a few wacky enemies around. Just try to beat it and we'll go to the next level. In Super Meat Boy Forever, they went, alright, here are the obstacles. Oh, you just died. Yeah, I don't know, do that 20 more times, eventually you'll beat it, I guess. You just can't properly react because 1, the lack of control you have, and 2, when you see an obstacle, you have like 1 to 3 seconds to react. I'm not even joking, look at this. How was I supposed to see that coming? In most of these auto-runner games, your character is usually either at the bottom of the screen or all the way to the left. But here, Meat Boy is plastered right in the middle. All of this space to the left of him is completely pointless 95% of the time. Yes, you do turn around or climb up at times, but you know, just make the camera pivot then, which it also does. Just imagine, alright, if Temple Run was played like this. That's Super Meat Boy Forever for you. And I haven't even mentioned the difficulty. Dude, Super Meat Boy is like Super Weenie Hutch Jr. compared to Forever. They made this game way too hard, to the point that I wasn't even able to beat the second level of the second Dark World. I got stuck on certain chunks, not the entire level, for 30 plus minutes, and eventually I just threw in the towel. And look, I am super determined when it comes to hard video games. My nerdy hard game completion portfolio is quite impressive in my opinion. But Forever just takes it too far, man. Fully completing this game takes over 200 plus hours. And this isn't like Isaac or Hollow Knight where there's a lot of content to mess with. Super Meat Boy Forever's gameplay is just too static, and I'm sorry, okay, it's boring. After 3 hours of playtime, you've almost seen everything. It does try to spice things up with new stage gimmicks, which some of these are actually pretty cool. I really like these piles of needles that you can only be in for an X amount of time, but it's still all built on top of this stupid auto-running mechanic that isn't fun. And then they also have it in the boss levels, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't. It's absolutely horrendous and I hate it. And it's like, why have the levels be randomly generated? It adds absolutely nothing to the experience. It's a stupid, annoying feature that is just here to bloat up the game. It's quantity over quality. And also, do you remember those bandages you could collect in Super Meat Boy? The ones that unlocked new characters with wacky abilities? Well, they do kinda have that in Forever, but instead of bandages, you collect binkies. And in order to get enough of them so you can unlock the final character, you need to replay the game thrice in one save file, because one playthrough doesn't have enough binkies laying around. What is the point of this? Not that you're missing out on much though, because instead of unlocking cool indie icons from other games with unique abilities, they are just references to classic games here like Mortal Kombat or Punch-Out, and they are just skins. They don't give you special moves that allow you to do some crazy schmuck. It is all cosmetic, which is such a huge downgrade in my eyes. And honestly, I could sit here for another 5 minutes explaining a dozen more things I don't like about this title, but I don't want to be a complete dickweed, because this game does have a few shimmers of light that I'm quite fond of. There is one thing I really like about Forever, and that is of course its presentation, the graphics, the cutscenes, the art direction. It is genuinely really charming. While Super Meat Boy did have that iconic Edmund artistic touch, which is still timeless to this day, it is understandable why they didn't go down that route for Forever, since Edmund left the project. I've seen people online say that they think the art style is really soulless, but I completely disagree with that. It's very different compared to Super Meat Boy, that's for sure, but Forever is still bursting with a lot of character. The level select screen changes when you swap between light and dark worlds. They have this great transition in the main menu of Meat Boy just flinging himself onto your screen. There are a dozen of these charming Dr. Fetus animations at the end of levels, with the ones in the glitch world being really creative. Custom little mini games referencing older games, idle animations, music, sound effects. The planets have these funny faces in the world select screen. Forever also has a more complex narrative, where instead of Dr. Fetus kidnapping Bandage Girl, he kidnapped Bandage Girl and Meat Boy's son named Nugget, and over your playthrough they get closer and start caring for each other. Aww. There's also something about a squirrel doing some Solid Snake cosplay, and he teams up with a brain and a big chainsaw tank that they try to turn into an awful plushie that nobody liked. And after a while it turns into some confusing time travel garbage. The story is a stupid mess, and I definitely like the simplicity of the original game more, but the animation of these cutscenes are very, very well done, and they do deserve a lot of praise. If you look through the credits though, it makes sense why the presentation is spot on, because they got names like Paul Tervoorde, Tammy Chang, and many more extremely talented artists, so big thumbs up to them. They did a fantastic job, and I'm being 100% honest. But for a game to be good, you need more than fancy art, and Forever just falls flat in the gameplay department. It's a boring and really frustrating snooze fest, and honestly, I'm not surprised that it got such a mixed reception online. All they had to do is make more short but sweet Meat Boy levels, give it a fresh coat of paint, add a little extra mechanic in there like the punch, which is genuinely fun to play with, and you would have been golden, but instead they turn it into a mobile game, one that isn't even good. I jumped into Forever with a positive attitude. I wanted to give it a fair shot. Honestly, I really did. And while the art and animation is very pretty, gameplay wise, like, this just isn't it, Chief, and I'm extremely disappointed. Also, small nitpick, why does Dr. Fetus on the main artwork have 4 fingers on his left hand but 5 on his right? It's a little goofy, all I'm saying. So you think that would be it, right? They made a bad sequel to an iconic game series, which is a shame, but you know, whatever, it happened, let's move on. Well, I am here to tell you that this isn't even the goofiest part about the Meat Boy franchise, because it is going to get even more confusing from this point out. At the end of Forever, the very, very end, after the credits, there is a cutscene of Dr. Fetus cloning a bunch of Meat Boys, cocking a shotgun back and forward, and then it jumps to black and some text fades on your screen saying Dr. Fetus will return, teasing another Super Meat Boy game. And that game is this. It's a Puyo Puyo clone. Yeah, they really went here. Dr. Fetus Mean Meat Machine. This game is the reason why I wanted to make this video, why I wanted to do a deep dive into the entire Meat Boy series. Now, to be fair though, this title isn't actually made by Team Meat, and by that extent Tommy Refenes, but rather by Head Up Games. It does say Tommy wrote the story, but the story is Le Fetus wants to kill Meat Boy clone, the end. It's basically just a wet fart. Now, I've played a lot of confusing titles in my years. Bad sequels, weird spin-offs, confusing re-releases, but this is such a why type of game, and I would put it on the same level of confusion as Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which is the absolute pinnacle of why make this. I already said it, but I'm gonna say it again. This is a Puyo Puyo clone. If you don't know what Puyo Puyo is, it is a tile matching game series, kinda like Tetris, but instead of clearing rows of blocks, you clear them in groups of 4 or more based on their color, and it doesn't have to be in a straight straight line like Bejeweled. The blocks just have to touch each other. And also, this game's title is a direct reference to Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is a straight up reskin of Puyo Puyo on the Sega Genesis. So yeah, this is basically just a Puyo Puyo Shmuyo Shmuyo Buyo Buyo game. The thing that makes these tile matching games a lot of fun though, may it be Tetris, Bejeweled or Puyo Puyo, and why people still play them even after more than 25 years, is of course going for those crazy combos, chaining moves together and going for a new high score. It's a really, and I really do mean really simple gameplay loop, but it's really satisfying, and sometimes that's all you really need. Well, in this game, they threw a little extra wrench into that gameplay loop, aka hazard. So imagine you're playing Puyo Puyo, okay, and then a saw randomly destroys half your board because it feels like it. Yippee! Playing this game is like stacking red cups on top of each other and then your little stupid brother comes in and kicks them all over. It's just tiresome. So they basically made a single player Puyo Puyo game where it's difficult to rack up combos, which I thought was the entire point of the series to begin with. I guess you can go for A+ ranks, which are obtained by beating a stage in an X amount of time, just like Super Meat Boy and Forever, but it's just a hassle, man, and some of these levels timers are just way too tight for their own good. I still did it though. I fully completed this game, for which you have to A+ rank every single level, and trust me when I say that 100%ing this game gets really goddamn annoying. And if I'm honest, yeah, that's about it. There isn't a lot more to say about the Mean Meat Machine. It's just an annoying version of Puyo Puyo with a Meat Boy skin slapped on top of it for no real reason. I wouldn't call it awful. I definitely had a lot more fun playing this compared to Forever, but the hazards aren't really fun to avoid. You are discouraged from making combos. Some of the bosses suck big balls. It's such a confusing title, and I don't understand why they went this direction to begin with. Why? Seriously, why is this a Meat Boy game? And again, just like Forever, presentation-wise, I really like it. It's a visually pretty game. It has catchy music, funky sound effects. The art is very nice. I like it a lot. Paul Tevorder knocked it out of the goddamn park. But this is Meat Boy, not Sonic or Mario, who you can plop into anything and make it work. Yes, this little guy used to be an absolute icon. He was on top of the world. But he was also rotting in the ground for 10 years straight, and his revival being these two games completely missed the point that made Meat Boy so beloved. There is no real easy way to go around this, but when people think of Meat Boy, they think of Edmund Macmillan, and Edmund is known for making ludicrously absurd games about depression, naked crying babies, killing innocent civilians based on basic traits, and he has made so many crude games, and a lot of those I'm honestly scared to show off because I think YouTube might demonetize my entire channel over it. Edmund's style is literally based on piss and dookie, and while Super Meat Boy was a lot more safe and clean in that regard, that crude aspect was still somewhat there. I mean, Meat Boy has a character made out of poop. There is nothing more to the joke. It's just a guy made out of dookie. And again, I like Forever's and Mean Meat Machine's art style. I like it a lot. They are very pretty games, but it just doesn't feel like Meat Boy in any way, shape or form. Not gameplay wise, not art direction wise, not even in atmosphere, and that's the big problem. These games just don't feel like Meat Boy games, especially Mean Meat Machines. Like seriously, why did they make a Puyo Puyo clone? It is so baffling to me. Which finally brings us to the end of this road. These days, Meat Boy has been moved to the side as a quote-unquote indie platforming icon that honestly not a lot of people care about anymore. The series has kinda been replaced with more recent difficult indie platforming titles like Celeste, Pizza Tower or even Rain World. Even Edmund Macmillan isn't really known as the Meat Boy guy anymore, but rather as the Isaac guy, and besides that, he has also built his reputation reputation up as someone that wants to take risks when making games. He really lets his mind go wild, even if you don't vibe with it, and I think people really respect that about him. He's currently working on a game called Mugenics, which is a turn-based tactics roguelike about stupid dumb cats, and it looks awesome. I'm really excited for it. He might have had to let go of Meat Boy, but I think it's for the better, because this cube of flesh is just lost in the sauce, and he doesn't know how to climb out of it. I'm pretty sure that Forever and Mean Meat Machine didn't perform well, even with all the talent they had behind the scenes. Forever was also originally an Epic Games exclusive that they most likely got a pretty nice paycheck out of from Epic, probably more than 1 million buckaroos. But did it actually sell well? I don't think so, since you don't really see people talk about the new titles at all. People don't even know about its existence. It is estimated that Forever sold about 40 to 100k copies on Steam, which really isn't super amazing for such an icon. Plus, it also only has 1000 reviews, which is quite an amount, don't get me wrong, but this is Meat Boy, not little indie guy first outing. And almost half of those reviews are negative, which I think should really say something about what people think about this title. Mean Meat Machine, on the other hand, did perform poorly, I think, with only 74 reviews on Steam and a peak player count of less than 40. And honestly, I'm not surprised by that. Again, why Puyo Puyo? Just why? This is of course just Steam and not including consoles, so I can't make a 100% correct assumption, but I think it's also a good estimate to go off on, because Steam is the most popular place to play indie games. And I'm not saying that spin-offs are a bad idea, but people want a proper Meat Boy sequel that builds upon the original. And if you don't do that twice in a row after 10 plus years of anticipation, yeah, fans are going to be disappointed and eventually just not care and leave. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a bit ironic because Edmund actually made a Isaac tile-matching spin-off called The Legend of Bombo, which is actually really fun. But the reason why this one works and these don't is because, first of all, Isaac already had 2 full fleshed out titles, a card game and a bunch of DLC released for it. And second, the game still feels very Isaac-y gameplay and art direction wise. The spirit of the series is very much still there, which is something I just can't say about the 2 recent Meat Boy games. These titles just have a completely different vibe compared to the original, and they missed the point what made Meat Boy Meat Boy. In lamest terms, they did a nuts and bolts twice. These days, Meat Boy has been watered down to makeshift plushie campaigns that they spam on their Steam news tab, including this abomination, and everyone is annoyed by it. And Forever got mod support in January of this year, which is a really bold thing to add to a game with a non-existing player base. The map editor in the original Meat Boy was very bare bones, but that was also part of the charm. Plus, Edmund bundled a bunch of fan levels in a nice little package with some new characters and endings, which was really cute. Then they did it again for Super Meat Boy, which was a really messy system that not a lot of people use, and now again in Forever. And the only thing I have to say about this is, why would you add a level editor to this game? At the time of this recording, there is literally one bloke playing Forever on Steam. One! Why would you add a level editor? There's just one guy. It's just one little bloke. So this whole video can basically be summarized in one short sentence. Meat Boy, you kinda fell off. Okay, thanks for watching everybody. Check out the second channel for more funny content. Bye bye!